Bienvenidos a un nuevo episodio del podcast del Salón de Idiomas. And well, Rox is back. Hi, Rox.
Hi, Alonso. How are you?
Well, I am sure that everybody is as pleased as me to have you back.
Oh, thank you.
You were gone for so long.
Yeah, for at least a podcast, right?
Yeah, one podcast.
But I'm always here. The thing is that I might be perhaps in one of those classrooms.
Yeah.
Okay? But I do have to admit that I really enjoy these episodes. They're really cool.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Actually, and in the previous episode, I know that you probably have already taken a look at it. However, I learned a bunch of cool stuff, like the creator of PeopleCert is Greek.
Oh, really? Okay. So PeopleCert, which is like the main institution that have this famous exam language cert, they're Greek. Interesting,
yeah.
Okay, but I guess they don't speak Greek to you, right? In the exam?
I mean, I hope not. No, that doesn't happen. At least in my case, it wasn't like that. They had an accent, however, it was totally fine.
Okay, yeah. No, I mean, honestly, we've been preparing for that exam and it's really easygoing. And even in the exam, the questions are easily, you can understand perfectly everything. They don't speak Greek to you.
Yeah, definitely. It's even if it sounds Greek to you, and if it sounds Greek to you, then perhaps you're not there yet, and you gotta study a little bit more.
Work on the listening skills. Speaking of listening, today we're gonna be expounding and talking a lot about the listening part of a pretty famous exam called Oxford. Yeah. So you might be acquainted with the exam, or if not, we're gonna just run over it really fast. Okay, so the Oxford exam is a multi-level test, pretty similar to LinguaSkill or Aptis. To my mind, similar. I think the resemblance is pretty high with LinguaSkill.
Yeah, mostly due to the online format as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you do it online, but you do have to go to a place where you actually do the exam. And it's adaptive. So this word adaptive makes it that similar to LinguaSkill because basically, depending on your performance, the following exercises you will have to complete might have a higher level or the same level, okay? Or I'm not sure whether a bit lower, depending on how well you perform, okay? So that's why it's called adaptive. Now, the funny thing, yeah.
So it's just that, it's fine. It's just that it seems like you get punished because you're doing well. It's like, oh, you did well, then I have something more difficult. I want you to fail.
Yeah, so no, but indeed, you need to go with this, this like really high spirits and the stamina that I try to do my best, but it's going to be like something farther, it's like you do your best, but you might have to run the extra mile in the exam even more.
Yeah, you either run the extra mile, you're gonna drown on the edge or something.
Now, okay, the good thing is that this exam tests you. So it covers the levels A2, B1, and B2. Okay, so it's an intermediate exam. In the end, it's not that, like overly difficult.
Okay, so also it's not gonna be from this is an apple and then they're gonna ask you to explain how the string theory works
or how to make an apple pie.
Exactly. Nice.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty bearable. Okay, so it's not something which is like, oh, I don't want to be here. And as a matter of fact, many people do this exam. It's perfect for many students who want to do a master's, who want to finish the degree, or even for teachers who need to have a B2 level. So it's a pretty good one. Now, bear in mind, it's a multi-level test, and most of the multi-level tests might have some drawbacks when it comes to certain requirements, especially if you work in the teaching field. But that's not the gist of our conversation, okay? The conversation is gonna focus a lot on the listening of this exam.
Do you know anything about that?
You have to enlighten me.
Oh, wow. So it seems that...
I hardly know anything about the listening.
It seems that the turns have tabled.
Okay.
Yeah. So the listening, yes. So in the listening, it is actually not out of this world. However, as you have mentioned a moment ago, well, it's pretty much just like it's adaptive. However, it still follows like the same structure. To start with the first part, you're basically going to be given 3 pictures. And while you're listening to the audio, you gotta choose which is the correct picture. When what you're being asked is like, what is the location that they are, or what are they doing?
Okay,
or
so this might be the lower level part of the listening?
Pretty much. It's actually a piece of cake most of the time.
And are the pictures like difficult to grasp the meaning, or are they pretty obvious? I mean,
no,
it's not an abstract picture, right?
Not at all, not at all. No.
Weird.
I mean, if they give you a Picasso and then they give you I don't know, a Monet, then I don't know that. I hope that doesn't happen.
You manage to have a really high level as well in the connoissance of arts and stuff.
Yeah. So you know.
But it's not the case, right?
No, it's not the case. No, it's more like what are they using? Are they using a ball or are they using a bat or something like that? So it's
okay. Yeah. I got it. Okay.
Yeah, it also, if you're like really, really young, like if you're like a toddler, then it's pretty useful to differentiate shapes.
Okay, I got it. So it's it's pretty easy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to the second part, that's where things get just a little bit trickier.
Okay.
Not that much. I mean, you are going to listen to a monologue, and then in this part, well, the speaker is going to explain sometimes like kind of like the instructions as to how to do something, or in some cases, which is kind of like the most common case, what are the requirements in order to do certain task, or in order to, I don't know, like enter for instance, to join a club. Then you're asked like the fee or the location, the capacity.
Okay, so like really specific details.
Extremely specific. Yeah.
Okay, so you need to be like really attentive to those tiny details. Okay, got
and
it.
As usual, even you're gonna be given 3 options. And never, just to keep in mind, they're always going to use the 3 options. So obviously you just gotta pay attention when they're like saying not, or when they are actually using the opposite words or something along those lines. So
okay. And by the way, all this is multiple choice, right? So you don't have to type anything
no. Everything is just multiple choice.
Right.
And it's only 3 options. So besides, you don't get punished if you fail. So if you don't know the answer, just try it again.
Okay, yeah. But my question is, do you have just one exercise per task, or are there like more questions? Like going back to the one with the pictures, do you have like several questions there with different pictures, or is just one take?
It's 5 pictures that you have to like discern which one is the correct one.
Okay.
Then in part 2, you are also going to answer 5 questions. So everything is actually like 5 except for part 3, which is 6. We're gonna go there right now.
Okay.
Now, part 3. In part 3, this is something that for Aptis, or pretty much also actually Cambridge, this is something really recognizable. This is a nice conversation between a man and a woman.
Okay, like the 2 of us here.
Yeah, exactly, like the 2 of us here. However, in that instance, they're kind of like fighting. Well, they're not fighting. I'm just exaggerating. I'm being dramatic. No, they're just that you gotta point out when they agree and when they disagree to some extent.
Do they usually agree and disagree, or are you just talking about whatever different aspects of a certain topic?
Well, for instance, they could be talking about art and whether or not it should be taught in schools.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna also talk about that, and then they're gonna take into account other topics. For instance, I don't know, is it going to be too expensive to include this in the program? Then the man might be willing to do this, and the woman might disagree. Okay. Or in both cases, they could be like, oh yeah, actually it could be fantastic since that will make the kids more creative.
I got it.
So yeah, pretty much.
Okay, but so what actually makes this task almost like impossible in the Aptis exam is the fact that it's pretty high level, and you listen to it just once, and the questions are not in order, And of course, it's like a C2 level. Of course, here we don't have that level because we're talking about this intermediate thing. But what makes it that difficult? If it's difficult, perhaps it's not that troublesome.
Okay, yeah, well, I mean, it's difficult, just like since they're like going back and forth. And sometimes even though they're speaking about the same thing, you're not completely sure as to how they agree and disagree. As you have just mentioned, fortunately, you listened to this twice. Besides, the questions are in order, so you're going to answer. Yeah, you're gonna know when they're talking about each topic. So you don't gotta jump back and forth and be like, "What are they talking about?" No.
Juggling with that multitasking thing is one of the most tiresome task you have to do.
Yeah, you definitely develop the big brains when you're practicing with this with Aptis.
Yeah, for sure. Because with Aptis, I mean, it's not just in the listening task, mind you. It's not just your level. But it's your quick wit, your mental acuity. Not like you have to think fast, you have to grasp everything fast, you have to synthesize things like in a blink of an eye, because otherwise time is running, you have just one chance. And that's why you're pretty likely to fail. You might be a native speaker, but you might encounter the same problems, right?
Certainly.
But not the way it's done in Oxford.
Exactly, no, that's not the way.
Great.
Nevertheless, there are a couple of things that, there's always a nevertheless.
There's always nevertheless. In Salon de Idiomas, there's always a but sometimes, but here is a nevertheless. Great, with mastery of the linkers.
Yes. Yeah. So the thing is that you're still gonna get tricked when it comes to how they agree and they disagree. So you gotta understand when this happens. There are a couple of details that you might want to take a look at. By the way, we also have an entire tutorial about this. I don't know why I forgot that word. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. We have many tutorials on YouTube, so just find the one. The one where it's actually you explaining how to do this exercise.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Enlightening.
Thanks. So basically, here, what you want to take a look at is when to know when they agree. A little detail that you can understand when they are agreeing is where the other person is just pretty much paraphrasing what the other is saying. That is one idea. On the other hand, what could be useful in order to know if they are agreeing or disagreeing is if they are giving more examples. Okay, so. If, for instance, if I say something like, I don't know, like listening to music is great for your brain, okay? You're not gonna say, sometimes, unfortunately, I hope that it happens to you when you're taking this test. However, sometimes they're gonna make it super easy, barely an inconvenience, by saying something like,
I don't see along your lines.
Exactly, or I totally see eye to eye with you, or even easier, I couldn't agree more.
Okay, so it's like a synonym of agreeing, basically.
Yet this doesn't happen all the time,
unfortunately.
Yeah. So when this happens, for instance, I don't know, like you're, instead of saying, with the example that I've mentioned a moment ago, instead of saying I couldn't agree more with you, you would say something like, well, if you are listening to music or if you're practicing music, you definitely are more disciplined and you become more creative. So you're not saying that, like, you're not saying exactly the words of it's good for your mental health or whatever, or good for your brain.
So you're reformulating.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
By providing some examples of the same idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Now, the other way around, this is perhaps like the easiest way is when sometimes the easiest way to, like just make a mistake is when they actually like say, kind of like paraphrase what the other person is saying. However, they always say something like, but, I see what you're totally saying.
Do they say but, or do they use a different one?
Well, they could also say like, however, on the other hand.
But it's clearly like a conjunction like that, right?
Yeah, definitely, exactly. So they are going to say like, I understand what you're saying, but, and then that's where you are, you basically hear this and this is disagreement. That is something that you can take into account. Now, then another useful way to know when they are disagreeing, or when they're disagreeing pretty much, is when the other person just pretty much, let's say, kind of like insults the other person.
I didn't know they would go that to the edge.
I mean, they're not gonna definitely destroy them. That's not gonna happen. However, like if I tell you something like, hey, do you believe I totally consider that we should teach music after school? It's like, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? Or something like that. They can even say,
okay, I got it.
Or I believe that you are taking it too far, or something like that.
I got it. Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of there seems to be like a lot of personal rapport there between these two individuals who are communicating.
Yeah. Most of the time, like at least for the biggest amount of listeners that I have listened to about this, they're pretty much friends. There are a couple of those where they are kind of like just two professionals, where they're definitely going to say more formal linkers, so pay attention to those.
To the linkers.
And yeah, that will be it. Oh, one last detail. Yeah.
Okay.
There is just one thing. This also applies every single time you're doing this disagreeing and agreeing. Sometimes you have that the answer is only man or women.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, it's not that they disagreed. It's just that only the man or the woman had the opinion about it.
Okay, so it's been just one of them who actually talked about that specific thing. So the others might not even mention anything regarding it.
Exactly. Okay. They might not even make a single comment about it. And then you'll be all confused, like, hey, in what moment did you actually disagree? I didn't hear that. It's like, yeah, they didn't hear that since there was nothing around. So yeah, that's where you also have to be careful when this happens.
I've got it. Okay. And is there always going to be like a both, at least one both option?
Well, at least from all that I have seen, you always use all the options. You always use man, you always use woman, you always use both.
Is there a chance for one of them to be more likely to appear? Like perhaps you can encounter both twice or at least twice or something. We're working here with figures and numbers. That's a different thing. That's a different way of facing an exam. It's like, what are the chances?
Using probability. Yeah, that's useful. Unfortunately, I believe that this is extremely varied. Like sometimes it's 3 men, sometimes it's 3 women, sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's like.
Okay, so like random.
Yeah, it's completely random. So yeah, you cannot use that as.
I've got it. But so basically, what we do have for sure is that the 3 options are going to appear no matter what.
At least in every single one that I have taken a look at, they always use all the options.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So this is like the third.
The third part.
The third part. And what about the fourth?
Okay, so the fourth part seems simpler, as actually is pretty much just like short recordings.
Yeah.
They can be either monologues or they can be sometimes like conversations. However, they last for like 30-40 seconds. Pretty much is actually short.
Okay.
And then you actually just have to answer 3 options. It's similar to the images. However, these questions are a little bit more elaborate.
Okay.
Likewise, you don't have images. You have only the options, okay? And you have like the audio. So actually, this is super common in pretty much every single test, like APTIS, like Cambridge, like...
The typical multi-test, but you have more than one question to that specific audio.
Yeah. It's like 5 audios, 5 short audios, 3 options for each question.
Okay, yeah. So eventually they add up, right? So eventually you have plenty of different exercises.
Yeah. Who would have guessed?
Okay, but the question, it's not that, so it's not similar, for example, to the one we have in LanguageCert at first, when you hear like someone having a short conversation and you have to answer what the following line might be.
No, that
one.
No, it's pretty much... No. It's pretty much like, I don't know, we were walking down the streets and then we saw a car crash and the question is, what were the speakers? Were they pedestrians? Were they drivers? Or were they the police officers? Something like that. Okay. So it's something like that.
So, like from all these different exercises you have talked about, to your mind, I guess the one with the conversation between 2 individuals, a man and a woman, might be the most challenging one.
Certainly. Yeah. Because actually, like part 2 would be just a long version of part 4, for instance. Instead of just one short audio, is one long audio with several questions. However, I forgot to mention, yes, the questions are also in order, and you listen to it twice, so you don't have to worry about whether you have to jump from the beginning to the end. And no, you're always going to like follow the format. And again, actually, since this is kind of like instructions, it's kind of like pretty intuitive. Okay,
so well, the positive thing of the Oxford exam is that you can choose the skill you want to do first. Okay, so that's like the really I think it's one of the silver linings of this exam. So if you're pretty inspired and fresh, it's like, let's start with the listening first, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you recommend starting with the listening, or would you leave it for, I don't know?
Well, definitely it depends on each person. Yet I would start with the thing that I believe that is the hardest, or the one that requires more brain power.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
like
more
perhaps
attention.
like the speaking. For me, it would be reading.
Reading, yeah, for sure. Yeah, because that's a bit, sometimes it's a bit mind-boggling with that much information and trying to synthesize mostly and grasp.
So I will try to get rid of that as soon as possible.
Okay.
Besides, one thing that it's cool, since it's like online and everything is technological. By the way, Oxford, this test won an award like in 2020, since their platform was like really technological and fancy.
You
and all
don't
that.
say.
Yeah, that was
okay,
that
great.
was the cool thing that I found out.
What I realized though, sorry if I
No worries.
interrupted, is that there's not much out there. It's like there's not much material, at least so far. I haven't seen that much, that many videos on YouTube or whatever, like information on this and tests you can encounter to practice.
Nah, it's not like Cambridge that you have a plethora of a bunch of resources.
Cambridge has always been there,
yeah, exactly. Or even I don't know, like a language search, like you could also
or lingua skill or aptis. I wonder why. There seems to be this mystery.
Yes, it's not that new. I mean, it's new, but it's not that new.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I think the latest when I first heard about it was like perhaps 6 or 7 years ago, as far as I recall.
Yeah.
Or perhaps even shorter.
I don't know. I guess that considering that since it's like adaptive, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. So all these.
Perhaps something similar to that. I don't know.
Okay, I got it. So the last question, and this is just a kind of a funny point, is I guess the kinds of conversations and audios you encounter in the exam, are they like really relatable? I mean, do we encounter this kind of speakings on you know what I mean? People speaking. Do you encounter this on a daily basis, or it's like too mechanic? Something's like, it's an exam and it's the way they speak, or?
No, I would say that that's actually pretty common. Perhaps the part two, nonetheless, is not that different. Since like, again, like if you're joining a club, then you gotta like follow some steps. So, or if you're opening a bank account, like those kind of things that perhaps is not something of every single day. Nonetheless, it's not like something alien or something like that. Yeah, I would say that the first part, perhaps if you are a toddler, you would be like, is the apple red or is the apple blue? I guess that it's green. Wow, it's green. Yeah. So perhaps it's just a bit of warm up. Yeah. Again, like the first part is pretty much a warm up.
Or for those people who don't need to have a pretty high level. I mean, in the end, it's the way of assessing the lower level.
Exactly. And that is a perfect way to know if either you got like A1, A2 or B1, or if it's a piece of cake for you, then you definitely are better than that. Yeah.
So what final recommendation you will give regarding the listening in general, like ways of working on this skill?
Well, basically, just try to, for instance, for the first part, try to be imaginative. Like you have to imagine the whole idea, like the whole scenario in your head, so you can actually guess what is the correct picture. On the other hand, you could actually read a couple of requirements in order to do whatever for part two.
Okay.
You could be gossipy and listen to people fighting on the internet when you're practicing for part three.
Perhaps even getting used to reading guidelines or different steps to follow in a specific case, or even clauses in a contract. I don't know, perhaps that's far too much, but getting used to that kind of ways of information you can encounter might be helpful as well in the listening.
Exactly. Yeah. And also, you could listen to a podcast quite often, especially if it's man and a woman. So you can get used to listening to two voices speaking at the same time for a long period of time, not just 30 seconds, for like at least 3 minutes, which is what lasts.
Do they usually have different accents? Or is it usually a British accent?
As far as I know, mostly it's British accents.
Okay. So better get used to a bit of this British accent. Okay, and for, I don't know, other advice in general. Actually, this is what we tend to advise, right? Like, listen to original material, not adapted material. Get used to listening actual people speaking,
exactly.
Not just adapted for a specific level, because that's not how you actually train your brains.
Exactly. Like, yeah, if you train with something real, then it's gonna be useful in the real life, not just in the test, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So fair enough. Pretty interesting, and a lot of information, really useful information on how to work on the listening skill of this interesting exam. I'm not sure whether I said this at the beginning, but another silver lining of the Oxford exam is that you're given the results in like 2 weeks. So in like 14 days.
Yeah, you don't gotta suffer.
Yeah, you don't have to suffer for like 2 months until you're given the results. And it has a lot of perks.
Yeah.
As far as I see, let's see if perhaps, hopefully in the future, they will come up with the other version, like from a C1 to a C2 level, to see how it goes.
So yeah, well.
So.
I don't know. I usually the one who asks the questions, and then
it was so fun to be asking you questions. You feel so empowered. Like, I don't just have to come up here with answers and be like really focused.
Yeah, no. So I don't know how to just say goodbye right now. So it's your turn.
Okay. So guys, for me, it was a pleasure to be asking the questions in this podcast. And Alonso has been so helpful to enlighten us on so many interesting, so many things, like really specific details on the exercise and on how to work with it and how to do it perfectly. And I guess that right after this, Alonso will be providing us with the explanation from it in Spanish, and whatever you need, you can count on Salón de Idiomas. Guys, remember, we are everywhere, okay? Social networks, YouTube, blog, and everywhere.
It seems like you rehearsed this a bunch of times. Good job.
I'm so inspired today. Okay, guys.
Nice. So I'll see you in a moment, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Y bueno, aquí estoy de vuelta, y sí, en el episodio de hoy, Rox y yo estábamos haciendo un pequeño juego de palabras haciendo mención al episodio en el que me enteré que el fundador de PeopleCert es griego, y Siana, a quien entrevisté, me estaba hablando en griego, jugando con la expresión "it sounds Greek to me", que en español es como decir "me suena chino". ¿Get it? Bueno, en este capítulo hablamos del examen de Oxford, un examen multinivel como Lingua Skill o Aptis, es decir, en esta prueba se evalúa tu nivel en un rango amplio de dificultad para que se dé con tu nivel de manera más concreta. Además, este es adaptativo, es decir, que la dificultad de las preguntas varía según tu desempeño. Así que es probable que haya que ir más allá o run the extra mile. Pero para ser más precisos, este examen cubre los niveles A2, B1 y B2, niveles más intermedios. Así que ya saben. No esperen que el examen empiece diciendo "esto es una manzana" a que explique la teoría de cuerdas. Como dice Rox, it's pretty bearable. Es bastante asequible. Además, este examen es perfecto para muchos estudiantes que quieran hacer un master's, o para graduarse, o incluso para los docentes. Pero hoy nos enfocamos en la parte del listening de Oxford. Y bueno, en esta oportunidad me toca a mí explicar un poquito mejor a Rox de qué va todo el asunto. Y qué mejor manera de empezarlo diciendo mal la frase "the tables have turned". En mi defensa, se dice mucho de manera cómica, aunque siga siendo incorrecta, "the turns have tabled". Bueno, continuando con el listening, como Rox dijo, es adaptativo, pero el formato se mantiene igual durante todo el examen. En la primera parte del listening del examen Oxford, tienes 3 imágenes simples y dependiendo de lo que escuches, habrá que escoger la opción correcta de 3 opciones. Aquí, usualmente hay que decir qué actividad se hace, o dónde, o algún objeto en concreto del que se hable en el audio. Esta tiende a ser la parte más sencilla del examen, a piece of cake. Luego, en la segunda parte, que tiende a ser más complicada, se escucha un monólogo donde el speaker normalmente da las instrucciones para hacer una actividad o las características de una situación en concreto, o, la más común, los requisitos para unirte a cierto evento o institución. De aquí hay que escoger la respuesta correcta de entre 3 opciones, y es común que se pregunten aspectos como tarifas, horarios, disponibilidad, formatos, etc. Es decir, detalles bastante específicos. Así que hay que ser muy atentos para no confundirse con distractores. So, prick up your ears. Otro detalle extra es que no se penalizan los errores cometidos, así que si no se sabe la respuesta, intenten adivinarla. La parte 3 del listening es muy similar a la de otros exámenes como Cambridge o Aptis. Hay que escuchar una conversación entre un hombre y una mujer y decir, de las 6 opiniones dadas, quién expresa dicha opinión, si es el hombre, la mujer o ambos. Un ejemplo sería qué opinan de enseñar arte en las escuelas, si les parece muy buena idea, si les parece que puede ser muy costoso o exigente y cosas así. Esta muchas veces se tiene como la parte más desafiante del examen. Por lo menos en el caso del examen Aptis Advanced, pues es que escuchas esta conversación solo una vez y las respuestas no están en orden, lo que te obliga a tener una retención y entendimiento muy veloz. Esto no es el caso aquí. Aquí puedes escuchar 2 veces y las respuestas están en orden. Nevertheless, ya que siempre hay un nevertheless en Salón de Idiomas, en el audio intentarán confundirte con la manera en que presentan los acuerdos y desacuerdos. Por cierto, tenemos un video que explica cómo hacer este tipo de ejercicios con más detalle en el canal de YouTube. Una manera de saber que están de acuerdo es que la otra persona simplemente parafrasee lo que la otra dice justo al terminar de expresar su opinión. Por otro lado, lo que también pueden hacer es, para mostrarse de acuerdo, ya que no todo el tiempo podemos contar con que digan expresiones como I couldn't agree more with you, es dar ejemplos del punto de vista de la otra persona. Así, si una persona dice, escuchar música es bueno para el cerebro, la otra persona mostraría su postura similar diciendo algo como, pues, escuchar o tocar música hace que te concentres mejor y seas más creativo, o algo por el estilo. Por otro lado, hay que tener cuidado, ya que en muchos casos pueden decir las frases como I understand what you're saying, entiendo lo que dices, lo que nos hace pensar que estarán de acuerdo, pero pueden luego usar un conector como but o however, y con eso sabremos que en realidad mostrarán es una opinión contraria. Otra manera de saber que están en desacuerdo es cuando uno haya dado su opinión, la otra responda con un insulto, no necesariamente fuerte, solo como ¿Are you crazy? O You're being ridiculous. Usualmente estas personas en estos audios tienen algún tipo de relación entre ellas, pero también están los casos donde pueden ser 2 profesionales dando sus puntos de vista en sus campos de trabajo. Por último, hay veces que la respuesta es solo hombre o mujer. Sin embargo, eso no quiere decir que tuvieran diferentes opiniones al respecto, sino que solo uno de las personas expresó una opinión, mientras que la otra glossed it over o lo pasó por alto. En este caso, no hay necesariamente un desacuerdo, sino más bien solo una persona opinando. Otro detalle es que, por lo que he visto, en la mayoría de los exámenes siempre vas a utilizar las 3 opciones al menos una vez. Con respecto a la parte 4 del Listening Oxford y, de hecho, la última, esta parece ser más sencilla en comparación con las 2 anteriores, ya que escucharás grabaciones cortas, monólogos o conversaciones, de unos 30 a 40 segundos cada una. Te dan 3 opciones y escuchas cada pregunta 2 veces. De hecho, es similar a la parte 1, pero con preguntas escritas y más complicadas. Se puede decir, de hecho, que es el ejercicio más común de los exámenes oficiales. Aquí el contexto nos puede ayudar mucho a saber la respuesta correcta. A mi parecer, la parte 3 sigue siendo la más complicada. Luego podría ser la segunda parte. Y bueno, luego ya Rox nos dice que otro detalle ameno del examen Oxford es que lo puedes hacer en el orden que quieras. Y, en mi opinión personal, empezaría con lo que les parece más complicado, mientras tienen la cabeza más fresca. Y en mi caso procuro get rid of o deshacerme del reading lo antes posible. Como fun fact o dato curioso, Oxford ganó un premio en 2020 por tener un examen con la tecnología que contribuyó de manera sobresaliente a evaluar todas las skills. Lo extra curioso es que a pesar de todo esto, este examen no es tan conocido como otros, tipo Aptis, o Cambridge, o Trinity, etc. Rox por último pregunta, ¿cuánto de comunes son los temas que se abordan en el listening? Y yo diría que son situaciones bastante comunes, exceptuando tal vez la parte 2, donde puede ser una situación no tan diaria, pero tampoco nada fuera de este mundo. Claro, la parte 1, al ser una un poco más introductoria y sencilla, no serían conversaciones necesariamente comunes, ya que no solemos debatir por 20 segundos si una manzana frente a nosotros es roja o verde. Como último consejo, en la primera parte ayuda mucho tratar de visualizar en tu cabeza lo que las personas dicen. Para la parte 2, puedes leer algunos folletos, instrucciones o requisitos para algo en concreto. Sé un poco gossipy o cotilla en la parte 3. Just joking. Pueden escuchar un podcast, especialmente si es de un hombre y una mujer, y así acostumbrarse a escuchar a dos personas que hablan casi al mismo tiempo. Lo más común sería escuchar acento británico. En síntesis, acostúmbrate a escuchar material real y no adaptado. Y ya como último detalle, Rox nos recuerda que los resultados de este examen los reciben al cabo de 2 semanas en lugar de 2 o 3 meses. Y bueno, la verdad es que eso sería todo por hoy. Ya saben que si les gustó el video pueden darle al botón de like y si quieren seguirnos en el canal de YouTube también nos pueden seguir en nuestras redes sociales. Y esto es todo por hoy. Espero que les haya gustado y I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.